Hey, just back for the second video here. And yeah, I'm just going to get situated and we're going to get started momentarily. So the last one we looked at was Axon Enterprise. Now we're going to look at something with the ticker WPM. And taking a look at this, Wheaton Precious Metals. The thing is here, I'm just going to type it in again because it's on different exchanges here. So we have it on the Canadian and we also have it on the New York Stock Exchange. So I am from Canada, and the person requesting this is also from Canada, so I'd naturally assume that we're looking at the Canadian stock. But it's always nice to know that it's listed on two different stock exchanges. So we're going to look at the TSX here, since this is what is more applicable for us. So we can take a look at some of this stuff here. Again, these are just different ideas from known traders, and you can see their status. So these are paying members. And yeah, you're always going to see different people using different technical indicators and come up with their own personal opinions about what could happen. And yeah, I admit that, I've looked at a lot of these people. Not these ones in particular, but hey, it's always nice to see what other people are thinking. And it kind of goes to the point that you should assume that someone that you're talking to might know something that you might not. So there's always potential information to be learned from people that have a different point of view than yourself. And yeah, not that you want to just be completely jumping from idea to idea or changing your own opinion because you heard someone else's. It's really good to naturally just hear some different contraindicating opinions, and you can formulate your own decision. So we could see that, look at how big is this company. So that's one thing that I do like looking at is the market cap, just to see how big is this general company. So 17.6 billion versus the last one was only about 4 billion. So it's a little bit, well, it's 4 times bigger, just in one sense. So that means is that more money has to pile into here for this to jump up. So for this to be 11 times its value, this would have to be worth 170 billion market cap. So you could see where a lot of money would have to flow into something like this for it to have such those kind of gains. But we can see this is one of the few things that I've seen in a strong buy. But also, I don't know if I just listen to this ever. So either way, some people are bullish on this. Some people say this not gold, this that. Well, let's take a look at this. Let's take a good look at what we're looking at here. So Wheaton Precious Metals Incorporated. I'm pretty sure this is, whoa, excuse me, it looks like I have looked at this before. I know that this was one of the stocks my mom holds. So I'm just gonna delete some of this stuff. As you can see, I've created a mess in here. And it looks like, well, let's just say hypothetically, what did I look at? So I don't know if this was, let's just zoom it out to the monthly sense and see what the hell, if I had anything. I don't know. I don't like these lines I drew. This might have been a little bit earlier, and it was probably more pertaining to where we were back here. And it looks like, yeah, I was drawing the three different scenarios. We were either going to go sideways here, we're going to come down, or we're going to have an uptrend. Go figure me. That's how you can be right all the time. Explain every possible scenario, but that's how it is in reality. You never really know exactly. So it looks like we had a little bit of an uptrend from that point, which I was looking at. And this isn't the main one that I hold, but this might be another one to add to my reserves. So here we could say that this one, sorry about this, guys. I hate that thing likes to pop up. We could say that this started in 2005, or this is when we have data for this, and yeah, we would have to say that this has a positive trend. How could you not? I don't know if that's really an awesome trend line. We don't have a whole bunch of touches, but that's what we have to work with here. So that's what we're going to use, and then we're going to draw just some type of something on the top here and see what we got. You could say in general, like this looks like an ascending triangle. That looks good. I like how this looks already. Except for, there's a little bit of momentum here that looks like a little bit pretty high when it surged, but you can say it did push forward more so. But yeah, it's going to delete some of these things out of here. So you could say that that is, I don't know, that's a pretty big freaking triangle over 22 decades, right? So let's just be a little bit more humble with that. But you could say that we've had some pretty good price action within a range of $40 to $20 for almost 10 years. So when we look at stuff that has, well, let's just say consolidated, it's consolidated within this range. Within a range, well, granted, it's going to be about, well, it's a pretty big freaking range too. So when we look at this monthly sense, yeah, I mean, it doesn't look quite like here. You could say bull run, bear run, bull run, consolidation. The thing is, we did just kind of touch on this all-time where we were encroaching on making all-time new highs, which would be an indication that, hey, maybe we're going to have another little leg up. In that sense, I mean, yeah, I like that for sure. Looks like we had a buy signal well, in February here, it was a buy signal for Wheaton. But now, yeah, looks like, look at this bar. Looking on the monthly time frame here, we just had a nice big green candle. That's a lot of buy. So that means that there's people buying this stuff up. Once it dropped down here, people just started buying this. They started buying it pretty good. Just shot right back up. So we could see here we had some people selling off at these levels right here. That's what that's indicating. We can see that the red bar, you can see them selling it like so, kind of reaching back into this range, and then all of a sudden we really had a lot of buyers as the price got shot down during the whole global panic. I mean, we had a decrease of about 30%, but hey, it's all back, man. That's all back. We're already back up to these prices of $40. So that is kind of a nice thing to see. I mean, we have a nice slow progression here with the momentum. I mean, when it's like this, it's not too drastic of price moves, but it's building it up. I think that this one, you know what, like this could have a lot of different things that happen to it, but it's a little bit high right here on the momentum and a little bit high right here. I mean, that doesn't really mean that it can't bust through this area, but I mean, let's just play Nostradamus here, and let's say that it has a little bit of a trail back here. Let's say just a little bit of a pullback, touches, and then maybe bounces in here and then decides to bust up. So we could see some negative momentum here coming into that phase, and then we might see that move up. So same thing here, we might lag down here. We might not even pass the negative. We might reach this support line, and then we might have that move to the upside. Sorry to make such a mess, but get out of here. That's what we got to do. We kind of just got to foresee what could happen, and it could go obviously the other way as well, but that's typically how these things work, right? I mean, they move within the channels that they're forming, and then we have a move to the up and down side. So with these ascending triangles, which it somewhat looks like, we usually have a move upward, but nothing in this world is for certain. But yeah, precious metals, you know what, in these times of uncertainty, I mean, I can only visualize that assets will inevitably start real physical assets will start raising in price. I mean, not because there's more scarcity of silver, but just because actual paper dollars are worth less. That's almost a guaranteed in my mind. It's just a matter of how long is it going to take to transpire. Is this going to take a couple of years before we see the effects of all this printing of money? And we've just, maybe we've just seen the beginning. 6.2 trillion printed in the States. What's that going to mean for your dollars at home? What's that going to mean for your $10? I'd probably humbly say it's probably worth at least $9.50 now. Like maybe that's a drastic understatement. Maybe it's worth $9. I'm not really sure, but I know that maybe it's worth $9.90. I'm not certain, but these changes take time to manifest, and who knows what all that's going to do. I mean, realistically, it could just mean that, are the with the stimulus package that the Fed is rolling out, are they going to start buying stocks, because that's kind of what might be next. So we might just see them pump it into the stock market. Old Mr. Dow Jones. I mean, are they going to just catch this immediately and shoot it back up? I mean, we'll see. We'll see what's going on. I mean, but typically when we have a little correction, it isn't just 1-2 months and back to normal. Um, Especially considering the global pandemic. I mean, I would expect some trickle waves down of lost momentum. Then I would expect to see some negative action here. I mean, we're not even in the negative action. It's been so quick, but guess what? It's starting to steep down pretty quick here, boys and girls. So we're just going to get back on the topic here, and I think it was WPM, Wheaton Precious Metals. Can't even speak. Precious metals. Okay, there we go. I can talk. All right. So yeah, no, this one is something that I was alluding to before, that possibly I'd be gathering a list, and I got a list of old alerts on the side here, but all these aren't really relevant. Some of these are years old, and some of that was features that you got with paid membership. So right now, I do somewhat like this setup here. We have a general overall uptrend, so these are good because even if you get a bad entry point, you can always just hold on. So if, let's say you entered in right here or something and you just held for years, you're going to be back up in the profit. So looking at this, well, we don't have a 200-day estimated moving average because we don't have enough data, but we can pull up the 100, and at least that's something. Again, on the monthly, 100 probably isn't going to give you much insight. Maybe this, you know what, like the moving averages on the monthly aren't typically, I do like the smaller ones, like the 13 gives you a little bit of an idea if we're trending above short term, like in a more short term in the 13 month. Well, what's the average over the last year in 1 month? I'd say it was about $35. So that's what this is saying. The average year in 1 month. What's the price of this? About here. So you could say that, yeah, once it kind of reached back down and touched near these levels, this was a better type of buy zone. So you could say that this is almost a little bit overpriced right now. Wheaton, I mean, it had, I don't know, like, is it overpriced though compared to what? I mean, this is where it gets a little bit foggy, but let's just look on a weekly sense, because we now got a better idea about the monthly action. And sometimes instead of trading months to months, which is good for holding on for years at a time, if you can time a good entry on a low monthly candle. But right here, you could have said, oh, this looked like a pretty good buy zone. We're going to change this moving average to something a little bit more. Let's say we try the 200 weekly. This is a good long-term entry point, because average of 200 weeks, yeah, we're almost looking at 4 years there, right? 52 weeks in a year, and just slightly more than 4 years. So the 4-year average of this is about 29.72, and I bet people were pretty happy, let's say, buying some of this up at these prices. So you could say as time moves on, maybe you want to time an entry point into this, because I would support an entry into this one, especially over a long-term time frame. You could say, hey, I want to try to find an entry point somewhere along this trend line up here. I imagine that, well, you never know how much people might have. This is the thing. I mean, where are people going to put on all this money? I mean, they're probably just going to spend it on essentials. So you could see some more selling off of this stuff. Especially like we said, we're moving within this triangle here, and once we're zooming in, it makes sense that we could come anywhere along here. So if there's no rush to enter into your position here, you might want to wait and just see if you can add more to it. And well, depending if you're talking about days or weeks. I mean, in terms of like buying and selling this stuff, I mean, the recommendation changes all the more so. I'd say here on a weekly sense, it looks like we're probably going to trickle down a little bit more. Um, but if we see price action break out of, let's say, the 45, let's say $46, I mean, hey, we're making all-time highs here, and that means that we're either going to have a little fake out, which could happen, or we could have some real movement to the upside. I mean, just because it's a complete bear market globally doesn't mean that some things can't move up, especially like precious metals when we have all this printing of currency. I mean, I can almost guarantee that this will happen. It's just a matter of how much is it we going to have like some retracement, down to these areas, or are we going to just like foam at the mouth and just start going up? Doesn't give you all the details of the world when I just draw a line up and line down, but it's a game of probability here, and looking at this, I mean, I would expect some type of price action within here as before we make some definitive move one way or another. Now, I think I've touched on this before, but we've had this leg down and it came back up. But let's say hypothetically we have another leg to the downside here, and then we have a crazy rally up and it reaches right here. I mean, I might not buy right in right here because that's going to make it a little bit more likely it might just shoot up and then come back down. But let's say that's scenario number one. Now scenario number two, you can be a little bit more confident entering into the position. Let's say that it hovers here. Let's say it does come down, and let's say we have more of a gradual kind of move up into this range here, and then we kind of start playing around with a particular range like this. I like it when it consolidates near the all-time high, and then you could play these breakouts a lot more, and then especially if you're swing trading, you can have a lower stop loss. So if you could buy into this, let's say around who knows what, 41, 42, 40, if it starts consolidating up here, and then you have a stop loss down here, I mean, you're making a pretty good, it's a very smart risk to reward investment because you're potentially risking, maybe percents versus you may actually gain like double your money on something like this. It's not too far fetched. I mean, to think that the market cap is 17.6 billion sounds like a lot of money to be in silver, but I mean, hell, Bitcoin's worth 10 times as much as this. I mean, there's a lot of companies like there's more money to be had in something like this, and yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if this is an ETF or if this is, well, that shows some of my negligence to knowing what this is a mining company which engages in the sale of precious metals and cobalt production. Goes through some different precious metals, so it's a mining one. So it's a little bit more, in my aspect, mining, well, it looks like an amalgamation of different mining things. So it's not just purely silver mining. It looked like it was some other minerals as well. So this isn't purely just the price of silver, but you could almost think of like mining companies relating to silver. I mean, yes, they're correlated for sure. The price of silver goes up, mining companies should make a lot more money because they might be, well, if they can be profitable right now, just think of, if you can be profitable selling, let's just say, bar or ounce of silver at, let's say $13 an ounce. I mean, imagine how much money you'd make at 26 because you've already produced a business that would gain profit off of a much less valuable product. So these profits could be a lot higher if they have an increase in silver, but I'm not sure in general if I would completely allocate my money into, let's say, a silver mining versus a silver itself. I think there's just something to be said about the asset itself versus like a mining company. Like it's kind of a little bit more down the train of actually holding or owning an actual asset. This is a company, and companies, well, they can fail you versus assets. I mean, silver will never go to zero. Wheaton precious metals might. I mean, in that sense, but this might be something that you can enter and exit out of with a little bit more freedom, because I know here in Canada I can't enter and exit out of my gold and silver ETFs. They make you go through a trader, which makes it, well, I don't know, a barrier to entry. So less people have it. I don't know why they have these barriers to entry on usually a lot of good assets. So with this, I mean, just another little bit of a rant with silver mining equipment, because I'm not really sure exactly what would be more profitable, silver itself or actually, let's say, something like Wheaton precious metals. I mean, yes, these are astronomical gains right here. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's a pretty big upswing right here. And this is the old top of the 2012 gold rush. So, one thing we could say is that we have created somewhat of a cup here, and we're challenging all-time highs. So, in this sense, just a very brief, I mean, you could say that we've somewhat went through a cup here. And looking at that, I mean, have we transpired through the bear phase? That's kind of cool. Have we made it through the bear phase? And are we, well, we're not quite yet because we haven't touched the all-time highs. But you could say here, how is this gonna transpire? I mean, I would say looking at this, I mean, you would definitely want to wait until you get back to here because of looking at everything. But yeah, it's going to be, this would be an example of something that I'd like to keep an eye on because it's kind of cross comparing to my silver investments, and maybe there is more potential in this. I guess you'll never know unless you can look historically and start calculating that. So just going to see what the moving average here is. Oh, hey, that is the 200-day. So yeah, even on a daily sense, you could say you'd want to wait, at least get some cheaper prices here. I mean, I would definitely wait and not buy quite right here. I think if you wait a few days or a week or two, maybe we'll see a nice little retracement here. You never can know. I mean, sometimes you shoot up and you're like, oh, why didn't I buy? And then only to shoot back down. So when we're looking at things in the long term, investment-wise, I mean, any kind of type of price action within here is probably normal. If you see a breakout here, that's definitely something to be excited about. And yeah, we've had a lot of volume kind of pump into here, so maybe that accounted for such that big drop, but it got supported back pretty good. This looks a lot better than a lot of charts out there, man. So looking at this, yeah, drop down, shit, 40%, and I mean, we're right back up here, so realistically, the drop from the bottom to right now is only like 10%, so a lot better than most things, because I think that in general, when we look at this, I'd say that silver is definitely undervalued. I mean, at 13 bucks an ounce, I mean, if you look at the cost of production, it should be about 20. I mean, you go try to buy silver, try to go $13 an ounce as a price from anyone physically. That's not true. So I'd say that potentially these could be a little bit undervalued. Maybe not right now, but once it gets into this, that's kind of like almost what you could say. Fair price right here, 200-day moving average, just in a general conceptual stance. Not always, but yeah, you could say that the average price over a long period of time is generally fair price. And you could say how, yeah, there's decent times to enter in for a little bit of gain, and we dropped right down, and now we're a little bit above. So I'd probably just hold off on this one for a few days and see how it reacts, but it always depends on what time frame you're looking at this from. So on this monthly sense, it looks like we're challenging here a little bit, but we got denied, so that we might have some time. You know, this trend line right here, this could just be bollocks. You know, I mean, it could get reformed anywhere, realistically, because right here, there's not a whole bunch of support touches around here. So how strong is this actually? I mean, it could be very weak, to be honest. But we've had a couple touches, I guess. So it's what we got to work with. Just destroyed that trend line, so let's just draw it once more, see if we get a couple touches, and at least right here we have these kind of 2 touches. So yeah, I'd expect it short term to work within here, and then it's either gonna have 2 different things. We're either gonna have like a little bit more of a downtrend breakdown, and then the next time it comes up, I'd definitely expect it to break up. I think it's just a matter of when is this gonna break up. Is it gonna be more in the shorter time frame and start? Don't get me too bullish. I mean, it could be more like this. It could be more of a drawn out thing and then start going up. It's not going to necessarily just start spiking right off the surface of the earth. But yeah, not a bad stock at all. I mean, it's something to look at. I mean, it's not super overextended like right here. I mean, we've had a little run, but looks like we've had a good little pullback. And now, on a monthly sense, yeah, we're a little bit high. For me, I'd like to come down a little bit lower. So the thing is, once we get in bull mode, sometimes we can get a pretty big, you can see here, there's still room for legging up. And usually what kicks off these little runs, a lot of buy side action. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 green months right here. We got a huge green one to start. It's interesting for sure. We've got some buying and selling here, so it's not quite the same. But here, yeah, we're not really down on a weekly sense either, so I'd definitely wait a little bit to get into this one, because I think that there's going to be a little bit more, here's how ugly that is. I mean, I think there's going to be a little bit more downside action in this one, but overall, I do like this Wheaton Precious Metal Corp, and it might be one to, let's say, add to the list. And well, what's on the list? Well, the list is still to be determined. I think the list should consist of the stocks that have the most potential have great returns with little risk. We can kind of play with things being on the list and off the list, but yeah, the list is a arbitrary idea right now, but to be involved in the markets, you have to keep updated, and you can't just take a week off and come back and say, hey, what happened in here. So my list is going to be obviously what I own, and also things that are looking pretty good for potential buy setups. I definitely have a little bit of cash right now, and I wouldn't mind throwing a little bit into some different stocks, but right now I'm a little bit just hesitant, and I'm just kind of observing very carefully and cautiously right now when to come back in. I'm coming back. It's just when am I coming? Some positions I never sold. I never sold my gold or silver. Why would I? I might add to those positions. It's just a matter of how much selling has to happen before we have a good capitulation and bottom, and we can continue to move up. Anyway, here's Wheaton Precious Metals Corp. Give you a little bit of my ideas about the matter, and yeah, number 2 of the day. Hopefully everyone's doing good. Again, give me a shout out if you want me to cover anything in particular. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.